Welcome back. We're getting UFC 330 for the main event of Islam Mahkachev defending his belt against Ian Machado Garry. Machado, this guy has another man's last name, his wife's ex-husband's last name, plastered next to his last name for his biggest achievement ever, which is fighting Islam Mahkachev for the belt. That is crazy. I can't, like, I would go to my nearest, like, I don't know where you get your, like, a name change, but I would get my name changed to just Garry for this fight because that's like the epitome of being a cuck, where for the headliner, you had your wife's ex-husband's last name next to yours. That is crazy. But anyways, Garry, such a weirdo. He is very unlikable, to be fair. I can't tell if he's playing a character. I genuinely can't tell if he's playing a character or not. He has done so many weird things in his career, like from the Cage Warriors up to now. He's been done a lot of cringy stuff, and I can't tell if he's doing it on purpose or not. Because if he's doing it on purpose, he's like playing a character. He's very smart. He knows how to play the game, kind of like Josh Hockett. He acts a bit cringe sometimes, and that's what gets people talking about him. Same thing. I generally can't tell that's what he's doing, because if he's not, I can't tell. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Some human being actually exists like Ian Garry. But either way, the main event, banger. Pound for pound number one fighter defending his belt against the best prospect right now, 170, if Shavkat never get injured. But either way, the main event is pretty good. The remaining cast on this card, from like you can say the co-main all the way down, all the matchups do fall a bit flat, and this makes the whole card kind of top heavy. And yeah, this whole card ain't that good. It is kind of mid, I will say so, especially for a numbered event with the main event of Islam versus Garry. It is a pretty weak card in terms of the supporting cast for the main event. Listen, from the beginning of the Paramount deal, every single numbered event, the beginning of this year, have been banger. From Gaethje to Pimblett to all the cards after that one. Banger, 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 banger. Including the White House. That wasn't a numbered event, but it's still a big event. This one falls flat. I would say so. And someone tries to tell you otherwise, like, oh, actually, this card is actually pretty good. You're just a casual. Just know they're pretty fucking lame for saying that. It is a pretty mid card. Listen, I know like 90% of the roster, like off the top of my head. I'm telling you right now, the matchups you see right here are not good for this card. But either way, it's a decent card still. I would say like it's a 6 out of 10 at best. If you exclude the main event, but still, it's an okay card. But either way, timestamps below if you want to skip through, because I am be going over all my picks for this whole card. And you can want to skip to the main event if you want, whatever. But anyways, first fight on the card for my pick, we got welterweight. We got Jeremiah Wells versus Meditic Orolbai. Now, this is a grappler versus grappler matchup where I do think Orolbai is the better grappler than Wells. Better fighter in general. He has the better stand-up as well. So I do think Orolbai washes Wells. I'm not sure if he finishes Wells. Maybe he can, but I'm not sure I can see him KOing Wells or submitting him, because look at Wells. He's got like no neck. So he's like submission or KO proof, basically. But I ain't going to go with Orolbai. I do think he wins this by decision because he's the better fighter. Next up at welterweight, we got another similar matchup. We got grappler versus grappler matchup where I do think Rami's Brahimaj is a much better grappler than Neo Magny and the more well-rounded fighter. I do think on the stand-up, Brahimaj is the better striker. So I do think Brahimaj is going to win this, maybe by KO. And I do think he can probably finish up there in age Magny. So I am going to go with Brahimaj winning this in the second round by KO. I feel like he can hurt into the body. Ooh, Magny's like, my hip. And Brahimaj just finishes him with ground and pound and gets it done by second round KO win. Next up, we got light heavyweights. We got Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando. Rafael Tobias, man, he kind of had like an easy layup win in the Contender Series where he felt like a very small light heavyweight who wasn't that good. Tobias being a grappler got it done by submission. But after that, he fought Dr. Nurgazai. Dr. Nurgazai is a decent boxer, but his grappling defense isn't really there. Sorry, I thought I got a call. Isn't really there. And so when he fought DR was supposed to like be the better boxer and struggle in the grappling. But when that fight happened, Tobias obviously was getting pieced up on the feet. But when he shot on DR and took him down, he got reversed a couple times. And I don't think that's a good sign for the future as a grappler. So Tobias, I'm not too sold on him at all. And he's now facing up with Lucas Fernando, someone who was making their UFC debut. This guy started off as a welterweight in the regional scene. Moved up to middleweight, and for the most of his career was at middleweight in the regional scene. I think he fought the contender series against Cesar Almeida, lost. I think he lost something like another fight after that, but after that, he was in a pretty decent winning streak. His last couple fights were at 205, so this guy went up 2 weight classes since his first professional fight. And I would say that this is his actual weight class. He's pretty big, rangy, and I want to say he's that skilled, but at 205, he relatively is a decently skilled fighter. And so I clearly do think Lucas Fernando wins this fight against Tobias, where he is a pretty big 205er, bigger than Tobias, someone who is a former welterweight, bigger than the other 205er, rangier, and he's got that lighter man skill, coming from welterweight. So I do think he's gonna pretty much win this fight by decision. I'm not sure he finishes Tobias, but I am gonna go with Fernando winning this one. Next up, we got a middleweight. We got Vicente Luque versus Tresean Gore. Vicente Luque, second fight in at middleweight. I thought he was going to lose his last fight against Gastelum, but no, Luque proved to be good, and he had that lighter man skill. Lit up Gastelum with an uppercut, dropped him, and then submitted him right after. Very impressive win for Luque. Even though Gastelum is a short, fat middleweight, Luque still gave us a pretty good performance. Anyways, next up, Tresean Gore. Tresean Gore. I would say he's kind of mid, if not slightly below mid. I do think Luke is the better fighter for sure in terms of skill for skill. The thing about Tresean Gore is, in his last fight, he looked way better than his previous fights. He looked insanely better. Now, let me explain why. Gore really didn't look that much better in terms of skill. His skill-wise, he looked pretty much the same as in a okay fighter. But his physical attributes, like his cardio, his durability, his explosivity, he looked way better in those departments. And you really can't train that by a huge extent, as in become way better in your cardio, way better in your durability. You really can't do that unless you're doing something, which is, I'm not gonna say on camera because legally I might get sued. But there's no other explanation I have aside from Gore doing something as to make him a much better physical fighter. So he won his last fight. I thought he was going to lose because, in my opinion, he's not that good against Islam Mahkachev, and he proved to be much better. But anyways, if he comes into this fight the exact same version that we saw him last time, against an up there in age Luque, who's taking a lot of damage, and he kind of, at the same time, is still a pretty small middleweight Luque, especially look at Tresean Gore. Gore is around the same height as Luque, but he's much bigger muscular-wise. I do think Gore most likely wins over Luque, gets it done, wears down Luque for 2 rounds straight, and then gets it done in the 3rd round just by hurting Luque for 3 rounds straight and gets it done by KO. And I kind of see how that happening. So I'm gonna go Gore, 3rd round KO win over Luque, which sucks. Luque, he's making his middleweight run. It's just I do think Gore, the way he looked in his last fight, should probably win this one. Anyways, next up we got on middleweight, we got Dante Johnson, an undefeated fighter, taking on Eric McConico. Now the thing about Dante Johnson is he's undefeated, but from what I've seen, he's an undefeated fighter, not because he's a monster, this undefeated prospect who's gonna run through the division and maybe become a champ as a undefeated fighter like Hamza, Ilya, Khabib, To me, it kind of feels like he kind of has been getting layup wins, where easy wins, where usually a lot of fighters that are undefeated really haven't been fighting that many good fighters. And Dante Johnson, in my opinion, kind of is that. He kind of had an easy win against Cedric Dumas. And then after that, he fights Cody Brundage, which is supposed to be another easy fight, but he struggled a lot in that fight. Now, the thing about Dante Johnson, former heavyweight, he won in the contender series as a heavyweight. He has a bunch of KOs, but we really haven't seen his striking much at middleweight. For the most part, kind of has been turned into a grappler, because the thing about going from heavyweight as a small guy, he's 5'8", going from a heavyweight to a middleweight, you're fighting way better strikers, way more skilled fighters, and you're still small. You're still a small middleweight. Even as a heavyweight to middleweight, you're still 5'8", and so he really can't stand and bang with middleweights as a small middleweight with the skill set of a heavyweight. And so he kind of has to turn into a grappler to at least win some of these matchups. And so that's kind of how I think that's why Dante Johnson has been looking at the last couple of fights, especially against Cody Brundage. And so Dante Johnson fighting Eric McConico, a big striker. So this basically is a small grappler versus big striker matchup. And we have seen this matchup time and time and time again have one outcome. The big striker always beats the small grappler. Like 9 out of 10 times, I would say so. And the 1 out of 10 times the small grappler wins is because there's like a huge skill gap between the small grappler and the big striker in terms of the grappling. But Eric McConico has solid takedown defense. We saw that against his last fight against Rodolfo Vieira. And on the stand-up, he is a solid, heavy-handed striker. And Dante Johnson, we really haven't seen him have decent hands at middleweight. So I do think Aaron McConico clears Johnson, gives him his first L in the UFC, and I am gonna go with him. Probably getting it done in the third round by KO, just wearing down Johnson in the on the feet, defending the takedowns, and just beating up Johnson to a third round KO win, where he just probably gets it done against the cage. And so I'm gonna go with McConico's third round KO win over Johnson. Next up, I got lightweight. We got Jalen Turner coming back after a win over Edson Barboza after coming back from retiring. So coming back after coming back. But anyways, he's taking on Fernandes after his Barboza win. And this could be an interesting matchup because Turner, he fought Barboza. Barboza, he's known as a really, really good kicker. But at the same time, Barboza is up there in age. But the thing is, Turner finished Barboza very quickly. I think he finished Barboza the quickest ever in Barboza's career. But at the same time, Barboza's up there in age. But still, Jalen Turner, when he's locked in, I do think he's one of the best fighters we have seen ever. Even though he's been losing, quite a bit before his retirement. I do think Jalen Turner, when he's locked in, mentally in there, and in his last fight against Barboza, he's very dangerous. Now he's taking on Fernandes, someone who fights kind of similar to Barboza, very much a good kicker, calf kicks, body kicks, head kicks. This guy spams all the kicks. And I think he's coming off of like a leg kick KO win, but in general, this dude is a pretty good kicker. And we might see, Fernandes having some good moments here and there against Turner. It's just, I do think Jalen Turner, when he's locked in, he is an elite fighter. Now, this is the UFC. Everybody's elite, but I do think he's elite of the elite, where he's really good. And so I am going to go with Jalen Turner dominating the first round against Fernandes. Probably gets it done by submission in the first round and wins a clear first round domination win by submission for Jalen Turner. I think I repaired myself like twice. But anyways, next up, last fight under prelims, we got welterweight. We got Chidi Njokuani. Chidi Njokuani. Does he have like an African accent? If not, then I might just sound racist as hell. But anyways, Chidi Njokuani versus Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez. This could be a decent matchup. On the feet, both of you guys, have some decent striking that can for sure make this a fun fight. Fun stand and bang fight. The thing is, Chidi Njokuani does struggle in the grappling. And Joel Alvarez, even though he lost his last fight against Amazov, he got ragdolled in that fight and submitted. Joel Alvarez still has some pretty good grappling of his own, and I think next to Njokuani, I feel like Alvarez can dominate Njokuani in the grappling. So this could be a good fun fight on the feet. It's just I might go with Alvarez early on into the fight, just going heavy in the grappling, taking down Njokuani, and probably submitting Njokuani or finishing with ground and pound. But yeah, on the feet, I can see this fight being kind of decently fun. Very similar to Njokuani when he fought Robocop, where in that fight, Robocop got cut open against Njokuani. Njokuani hurt him a little bit, but then Robocop decided to be like, let me just take this fool down, take him down, and finish him with ground and pound. And that's exactly what happened. And I could see this fight going very similar to Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez might get cut open, but then he goes for the grappling, takes down Njokuani, and finishes him with ground and pound. So first round submission, ground and pound win for Joel Alvarez. Next up, we got a lightweight. For the first fight on the main card, we got Edson Barboza. Speaking of Barboza, he's right here. Still active, still active fighter. Taking on Esteban Ribovics. It will be amazing if we get Barboza for, like, you could say this is his retirement fight. I'm not sure if it is or not, but if it is his retirement fight, he gets like a spinning wheel kick KO, just like old times, and he retires on a high note. That would be a banger, but realistically, Esteban Ribovics being one of the best, pure boxers we have seen at lightweight, I do think he's really good. Ribovics really just struggles with the grappling, where he gets, taken down, controlled, kind of in his last fight against Gamera. But before that, he's been, he has struggled with the grappling before. But Barboza has some pretty good grappling of his own, but he doesn't offensively grapple. So for the most part, there's going to be a stand and bang fight. And I do lean towards Esteban Ribovics winning this fight against Barboza, where he goes out there, starts to flow against Barboza with the boxing, and probably finishes Barboza maybe in the second round. Ribovics doesn't really have like kill power or anything like that, but Barboza, up there in age, has taken a lot of damage. I do think Ribovics can get a KO win over Barboza in the second round. Just bam 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 bam, pick him apart and get it done like that. So there you go. Middleweight, we got Mansour Abdul-Malik versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Mansour, he used to be an undefeated fighter. He's coming off his first win over his first loss against Yuri Bogoroi by KO. He lost by KO, which is gonna be interesting to see how Mansour Abdul-Malik looks in this fight. Going from a undefeated monster, which in my opinion he was never a monster. He kind of was like a, speaking of what's his name, what's his name? Not Jeremiah. Dante Johnson. He kind of, in my opinion, is like an undefeated fighter. Or when he was undefeated, he wasn't undefeated because he was good. He was kind of undefeated because the UFC was kind of babying him with giving him easy layup wins, and it looked like that. It looked exactly like that. Where his wins, he would win because Mansour Abdul-Malik is a physical like specimen. Look at him. He's big, tall, explosive, kill power. He's got it all when you want to be a UFC fighter. He's got all the physical attributes you want to have to be at this UFC level. It's just his actual skill alone isn't really there, and so I knew he was going to lose to Yuri Bogoroi. But the thing is, it's gonna be interesting to see how he looks in this next fight after coming off a KO loss after being undefeated. But anyways, he's taking on Dustin Stoltzfus, someone who isn't doing too great in the UFC. So this could be an easy layup win for Mansour. Dustin Stoltzfus is like 3-7 in the UFC, not doing so great, and also he kind of like fluked his way past the Contender Series where he fought Joe Pyfer, and it's Joe Pyfer. Dustin Stoltzfus was going to lose that fight, but what happened is Dustin Stoltzfus, him being mainly a grappler, he's got some decent grappling. He picked up Joe Pyfer, slammed him. Joe Pyfer, he what's the word? He propped up against the mat right when he got like slammed, and then his forearm got dislocated, and that's how he lost a injury type of fight. And so Dustin Stoltzfus won like that, but since then, he hasn't really been doing that great against other fighters in the UFC, and Dustin Stoltzfus has a couple of decent UFC wins. That's pretty good. Having you got on public, you're not gonna find anybody with a UFC win. The fact that Dustin Stoltzfus, is a fighter with a couple of UFC wins, that's pretty good. It's just the thing is, I don't think he should have low-key got signed to the UFC in terms of a 9 out of 10 times he would have lost to Joe Pyfer, and he is now in the UFC. This is the timeline we're living in, where he got past Joe Pyfer by that that outcome. And we're seeing the fruits of that, of seeing him just not do so great against not Joe Pyfer, against other UFC fighters. And he's taking on Mansour Abdul-Malik now. And this is I would say he actually is slightly more skilled than Mansour Abdul-Malik in terms of skill for skill. But I do think Mansour Abdul-Malik might come into this fight hungry, still hungry after losing a KO loss. And obviously he's pretty big, he's explosive, kill power. I do think he can probably do decently defending some of Dustin Stoltzfus' grappling and keep it on the feet. And on the feet, I do think Malik gets it done by KO. Mostly in the second round. I can see it happen in the second round. He might struggle in the first round against Stoltzfus in the grappling. But then in the second round, he starts defending the takedowns. Stoltzfus starts gassing out, and then that's how he gets finished. He starts turning into a ball against the cage. And Malik wins a KO win by ground and pound. So there you go. Co-main, we got women's strawweight. A title fight between Mackenzie Dern, someone who won a vacant title fight from Verna Jandaroba, and she's now defending it for the first time against Jillian Robertson, someone who is in a hot streak, pretty good grappler. And so this could be an interesting matchup. As the thing is, no Zhang Weili. Should have been her, but she's right now busy, looking very beautiful for me, my boo. But anyways, the fight between Dern and Robertson. The thing about WMMA in general is the skill ceiling isn't really that high up. You could take the best fighter from one division and put him up against the worst fighter, and it could be a close fight between the two fighters in WMMA. The skill ceiling isn't that high up. What I'm trying to say, Mackenzie Dern, Robertson, this could be a really close fight, and I'll say they're both around the same skill level, very similar tool set. And this could be a really good fight. A very close fight, though. Very close fight. But I do lean towards Jillian Robertson in the grappling. I don't think this is gonna be like a 3-2 type of fight where one wins 3 rounds, one wins 2 rounds. Very close fight. Arguably, the other one could have won it, but I do think Jillian Robertson gets it done by 3 rounds, wins over Dern's 2 rounds. So I'm gonna go with Robertson winning a unanimous decision. Very close fight, especially with the grappling. I do think that's gonna be the deciding factor, but I'm not too confident. Just saying. But either way, it doesn't matter. Both of these girls, whoever comes out as the champ loses right away to Zhang Willy, so it's not like I matter, you know. But anyways, last fight on the main card. Now for the main event, we got at welterweight title fight between Islam Makhachev, champ right now after beating JDM, defending it for the first time at 170 against Ian Machado Garry, the best contender right now at 170 if Shavkat never got injured. But either way, this could be a very decent fight for sure because Islam Makhachev, you know, #1 pound for pound fighter right now for sure. You know, what's his name? Ilya, Hamzat, Mirab, Pereira. A lot of these guys that were like circulating around the #1, #2 pound for pound fighter type of conversation. They all lost their last fights, and so they kind of like fell, you know, away from that conversation. And Islam Makhachev still standing tall as the #1, #2 pound for pound fighter, probably most likely the #1 right now fighter in the UFC. And that's because ever since, you know, looking back in that era, Islam Makhachev got slipped out cold against Adriano Martins. Just bomb, he got slipped out cold. It looks like he was in a street fight and got slammed against concrete. He was like, you know, like eyes rolled up. He didn't know what was happening. But in that time, Islam had like no striking. Like it was no striking offense, no striking defense. He mainly was just a grappler in that era. And, you know, he got punished against Adriano Martins where he got slipped out cold. But since then, he has improved a lot. He has improved his striking, not just defense, offense as well. He's become a pretty decent striker as well. And then obviously his grappling has become way better. You know, he's become a very versatile grappler. Where back then, what he would really do was just push you up against the cage, try to take you down. But now he's come up with single legs, double legs, body locks, trips, you know, leg catches, whatever. He's got all of it on lock, you know, ready to take you down from any position. And then when he takes you down, he controls you. He gets on your, you know, he's gonna submit you from your, you know, on top, from your back. You know, he's got a bunch of different submissions as well, and he's got a bunch of different positions. Islam Makhachev, a very dangerous fighter. And the thing about Islam Makhachev is, how would I put it? Grapplers, or very good grapplers, even though they don't have to have really good striking, just because they put like the fear of the takedown threat against their opponents are just focusing on the takedowns, and they're not really, you know, focusing on the striking. They're just disregarding their striking, and that kind of opens up the grappler to be able to, you know, move around more in the striking, be able to land more combinations than they will usually land in a pure striking fight. And so because of the takedown threat, they become better strikers. And I would say Islam Makhachev, even though he's like I would say purely he's like a average striker, because of the takedown threat, he becomes a pretty decent striker. And when you see him be competitive with Charles Oliveira, he knocked down Charles Oliveira with the striking, submitted him right after. He was competitive with Volkanovski on the feet as well, because of the takedown threat, but at the same time, it's still Volkanovski, you know, the best 145er ever. In that time, he was like #1. They were fighting for like the #1 pound for pound spot when they first fought, if you remember. And then right after that, he head kicks, KOs Volkanovski with the striking. Even though it was Volkanovski off the couch, it's still Volkanovski, and he landed a head kick, which shows Islam Makhachev really understands, you know, his fighters when he goes in there. They do a lot of film study his camp, because even in the first fight, he was throwing a lot of head kicks, and he didn't really get it in the first fight. But in the second fight, that's when he finally got it against a off the couch Volkanovski. And then after that, he fights Poirier, was competitive on the feet with Poirier. So Islam Makhachev, like I said, even though his pure striking isn't that good, and he might lose against a lot of these guys in the striking, because of the takedown threat, it makes the striking way better, and he's able to compete with a lot of these guys in the striking. I think he outstruck Poirier on the feet, but either way, it was because of that. Then we don't speak about the next fight after that one, and then after that one, he fights JDM, which JDM probably being the best boxer right now at 170 Islam Makhachev because of the takedown threat, and at the same time, 90% of the fight was on the ground. The very little time we saw on the feet, Islam Makhachev was out striking JDMs, mostly because of the calf kicks, but still, he was still out striking JDM and won that fight. And yeah, Islam Makhachev, because he's such a complete fighter and has a dangerous grappling game, especially dangerous takedown game. Yeah, it makes perfect sense as to why after losing that one fight, he is on a huge winning streak. Has the exact same amount of wins as Anderson Silva on his winning streak, even though Anderson Silva has more championship wins. It's still the exact same amount of wins for Islam Makhachev. He's fighting in 2026, a more modern era as well. So it's still pretty impressive for Islam Makhachev. And also, Islam Makhachev versus Ian Machado Garry, Dagestan versus Ireland. Dagestan is 3-0 over Ireland in terms of main event. Dagestan versus Ireland rivalries. Conor lost to Khabib, and then Paul Hughes lost to Usman Nurmagomedov for 2 main events in the PFL. I do think Paul Hughes won both fights. By the way, I saw both of those fights live. I mean, not live in the stadium, but like live on streaming. And both times I did think Paul Hughes won, which I would say he should have won both ones. But I guess on record, it's 3-0 for Dagestan over Ireland. So Islam Makhachev also has that little stat for him going into this fight and taking on Ian Machado Garry. And he's got the aura, I guess you can say, to relate to the kids. He's got aura, guys. And so he's got that too. Anyways, the contender, Ian Machado Garry, the grade A weirdo that we got right here. This guy is so weird. He's so cringy. I'm not sure how he does it, if it's a character or not. But either way, what has he done? Last week he did like a video for PETA talking about animal rights or whatever. He talked about Magny being a child abuser, falsely accused him of it. He twisted his words, something like that. Why would he do that? No clue. He said like women should rule the world or something like that. I forget what he said, but buddy, what are you talking about? Like, listen, you can be pro women or whatever, but like, just because you say one thing doesn't mean you actually are pro women. You're just trying to make women think you're like a underside or whatever. Anyways, the women that even think like that, you're like, those are not women, by the way. Those are just retards that have a stupid opinion. But anyways, Ian Machado Garry, he's a weirdo for sure. He's a weirdo. He makes no sense. I can't tell if he's a real human being. If not, if he's playing a character or not. But either way, in terms of his actual fighting skill, he's legit. He's really good. And obviously on the stand-up, he's gonna most likely pick apart Islam Makhachev because he is. Listen, this is the thing about Ian Garry. He is a real welterweight. Islam Makhachev fought JDM, but JDM is he was the exact same size as Islam Makhachev. JDM, height, muscle mass. Ian Garry is 6'3". He's big. He's a big welterweight. Islam Makhachev really hasn't fought anybody that big. He fought Dan Hooker, but Dan Hooker is like a 6 foot tall, lightweight, and his footwork isn't nowhere near as good as Ian Garry in terms of the striking in general. Ian Garry, very good in terms of the striking, big, and he has very solid grappling. Now, in terms of his grappling, for what we've seen in the UFC specifically, it's very little. It's very little from what we've seen of Ian Garry. So I kind of went around all his film, like all his fights, trying to, point all of the times he got taken down. And he got taken down quite a bit against Weeks. He fought Weeks and Green. Both of them only landed 1 takedown, and they've been landed very similar takedowns as in a rear body body lock takedown, which they picked him up from the back. They slammed him down. But Garry from then, he postured up pretty quickly, was able to get 1 foot up, and was able to escape the grip and not be held down or anything like that. So it really doesn't really mean much, for me, what Garry did in that fight in terms of he's gonna struggle in the grappling against Makhachev, especially those fights were a little bit while ago. And then after that, he fights Song Kinan. I think I forgot what happens in the Song Kinan. He got knocked down. If I remember, he got knocked down with like a counter left hook, and from then it was like a slippery slope situation of Ian Garry being rocked, trying to escape against Song Kinan. Song Kinan was on his back. He took him down like twice. It was like another rear body takedown, body lock takedown, and then I think another one was like I forgot what they're called, but I think they were like all variations of body lock takedowns. He landed 2 after that one. I don't remember. He fought a couple other times, but there were no takedowns against Garry. But I think after the next time he did get taken down was against when he fought MVP. And in that fight, Garry obviously was offensively grappling in that fight because Garry really doesn't offensively grapple. He, for the most part, he wants to keep the fight on the feet. And when he fought MVP, MVP was just lighting up Garry, Garry had to resort to offensively grapple to win that fight. Very close fight, by the way. Very close fight. And obviously, Garry had a good, had some good moments in that fight. I think he had like 2 submission attempts, which he couldn't get because of the vegan diet this guy has. Which, buddy, you're not doing anything by being a vegan. You're not saving the world. You're just being dumb. And especially a lot of these vegans get in your face without without any like you don't even say anything. You don't warrant anything, and they just go in your face saying, "Did you know I'm vegan?" It's like, yeah, we get it. But anyways, Garry. He couldn't get a submission over MVP. This guy has vegan power, vegan strength is what I meant to say. And obviously in that fight, Garry gets taken down once against MVP, where he shot on MVP. I think it was like a single leg or double leg, something like that. He failed. He like messed up. And then MVP was just moving forward. He was driving forward, where Garry was forced to fall on his back. And then MVP just passes guard and just holds down Garry. I forget exactly how it goes after. I'm not sure if Garry escaped, but if he did, then I don't remember. But Garry was on his back after that. I think he got back up. I forgot exactly how, but he was able to get back up against MVP. But that was the only moment he got taken down in that fight. Very little moment. And then after that, he fights Shavkat, where she got taken down twice in that fight. For the most part, Shavkat in the very first couple rounds, he was going for body lock takedowns on Garry. I'm assuming Shavkat must have seen Garry's footage. Was like, oh, this guy gets taken down pretty easily against body locks. And so I think he was going for that, but then he saw he couldn't get it because I'm pretty sure Garry must have cleaned that part of his game, not getting taken down by body locks. And so Garry didn't get taken down the first couple rounds against Shavkat. And then I think in the 4th round, Shavkat managed to get 2 takedowns on Garry, where he goes for a double leg, then runs the pipe, has his right arm on Ian Garry's his left leg, has it up, and then he goes for his left hand, wraps it around the neck, and then goes for like I'm not sure what you call that. It's like a hybrid between like a hip toss and something else. I don't remember exactly, but I don't know the name of the takedown. You're gonna see it right now on the screen. I don't see it right now. I'm just talking right now, but I'm not sure exactly what you call that takedown. But it's like a variation, but it's like I'm not sure exactly. It's like a single leg type of hip toss, type of hidden arm takedown type of situation. I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but anyways, he got it on Ian Garry, took him down, and then Ian Garry obviously had to struggle being on bottom. But I do think he escaped the being on bottom. I think what he did is he like turned around to give up his back. Shavkat, he bit on the bait where he went on Ian Garry's back, but Ian Garry quickly tripod, and so obviously Shavkat was high up. He fell down, and Ian Garry was able to escape Shavkat, and that, which is pretty good. I do think tripods are pretty underrated in grappling, to be fair. But anyways, Garry after that, what was it? Shavkat, he shot on Garry, another double leg. And Garry went for a guillotine, but he didn't get it. And then obviously he was on bottom after not getting a guillotine submission. And so I think the round ended like that, where Shavkat was just on top after getting a double leg against Garry. And then after in the 5th round, that's where Garry almost submits Shavkat. I think Shavkat was doing the exact same thing in the 4th round, where he goes for a double leg, runs the pipe, tries to go for that over, like, what is, I'm not sure what you call it. He just puts his hand around the back of Ian Garry's neck, tries to take him down, but like a hip toss or like a head and arm type of taking down. I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but Ian Garry, it's like a hybrid type of move, to be fair. But either way, Ian Garry doesn't get taken down. I think he like moves his head down to avoid getting taken down. He adjusts mid fight, which shows high fight IQ. He doesn't get taken down, and then he goes for a rear body lock takedown on Shavkat, takes him down. They like spin a little bit. He takes him down, and then he goes on Shavkat's back and almost gets a rear naked choke, which he didn't get because once again the vegan diet. And so yeah, Ian Garry, you eat some meat, take some. I got a couple protein bars. You want to get a couple if you want. I got some here right here. Eat protein, my guy. Eat protein. Eat some meat. Eat some chicken. It tastes delicious. You can get submissions if you eat meat. So it's a little advice for you. But either way, Ian Garry didn't get the submission. He talked about how from that point on, that was his first or his only loss ever against Shavkat, because he didn't get the submission. Where he has like a picture. I forgot what he said. He has like a picture in his room of that submission he didn't get, the submission attempt, where it like motivated him to like be even better. And there's the next couple fights where after that he fights Protes, which it wasn't really like a grappling fight. I mean, I think Ian Garry shot a couple takedowns on Protes, took him down a couple times, but I mean, it doesn't really mean much that fight to me. More, Protes is a striker for the most part, and so whatever. But anyways, Garry wins that fight against Protes, which that win is aging like fine wine. It's aging like Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili, I think she's like 35. She's aging beautifully. So that win over Protes, aging the exact same way as Zhang Weili. My boo. But anyways, that win aged like fine wine, like Weili. And so after that, he fights Belal, and he's coming off a Belal win, which that win, unlike the Protes win, isn't really aging that great. Belal before that loss, and then right after that loses to Bonfim. So yeah, it's not a great look because Garry kind of did go to a close decision against Belal, even though Garry dominated. Belal was still pretty competitive against Garry, but either way, Garry he defended all of Belal's takedowns, dominated on the stand up, and so yeah, it was still a pretty good performance for Garry going into this Islam Makhachev fight. So yeah, and so how this fight goes out, how this fight go, like I would say it goes on paper stylistically. I do think Garry on the stand up, even though we have seen many fighters like JDM, Volkanovski, Poirier, or whatever, struggle against Islam Makhachev on the stand up because of that takedown threat. I do see Ian Machado Garry being kind of dumb, as in not care about the takedowns, and that actually unironically makes him a better striker in this fight. And so, I could see him doing really good in stand up, just not not being too worried about Islam Makhachev's takedowns. He's got the whole cringe aura that counters Islam's aura. So there you go. And so Ian Garry, I do think he does pretty good in the stand up, especially because Islam Makhachev has never fought anybody as big as Garry. JDM, the thing about this guy is this dude like walks around the cage. He's not like moving around like Garry. He walks into range. He catches his opponents off guard with a jab or whatever to the body. Bam, bam, bam. That type of footwork works against him against when he fought Islam Makhachev, where it just made him very easy to get taken down. Ian Machado Garry, this dude moves around a lot. We saw that in the Protes fight, and Islam Makhachev is gonna have to have better striking than Protes to better footwork than Protes to cover the distance, get past that distance, and go shoot on takedowns. He doesn't necessarily have to be as good as Protes, but he still needs to be able to cover distance in order to get past Garry's range and take him down. Now, at the same time, he could, looking at Garry, be like, okay, so Garry is a big guy. I need to get past his range. Why not wait for him to, go to me? And so then I go for takedowns when Garry's coming towards it to me. I'm not sure. Like, Garry's still a very good, solid, defensively sound fighter where he's not going to overexert himself and make it easy for Makhachev to, time takedowns on Garry. But who knows? I really don't know. The thing about Garry, really, we really haven't seen this, him really struggle in the grappling. He got taken down a couple times, but he still survived all of them. He's not like he was, doing really bad in the grappling. It's because we really haven't seen much of Garry's grappling overall compared to Islam Makhachev's grappling. On the stand-up, we've seen a lot of Islam Makhachev stand-up. We've seen a lot of Ian Machado's Garry stand-up, and I do think stylistically, this is going to be a very hard fight for Islam Makhachev on the feet. Someone who's big, rangy, moves a lot. He's not, listen, he has a 42-inch reach, so I guess technically he has a 1.5-inch reach advantage. But the thing is, Ian Machado Garry has a very good understanding of his range. A lot of fighters have much longer range than Garry, but they suck at striking. And so Ian Machado Garry, even though he has a 42-inch reach, he still utilizes his reach very well. He what's the word? He knows how to move his body a lot. He knows his own body really well to be able to move around, land when he needs to land, move around when he needs to land. Islam Makhachev is still very sloppy in terms of like I said before, he's average. He's an average striker where the takedown threat makes him a pretty good striker. But the thing is Ian Machado Garry, like I said, I don't think he's gonna worry too much about that. And that makes him a very good striker. Very good kicks as well. Calf kicks, body kicks, head kicks. Ian Garry, I think he has like 2 head kick KO wins, one in the UFC, one in the Cage Warriors. And he might be able to return the favor over a shorter Islam Makhachev, the way Islam Makhachev head kick KO'd shorter Volkanovski. So we might see Garry return the favor in that, in that type of realm, I guess you can say. I'm not sure if he finishes Islam Makhachev. He could probably, but in terms of pure, point striking, I do think Ian Garry dominates Islam Makhachev. The fight stays on the feet. Now, how does Ian Garry do in the grappling? Because we really haven't seen much of his grappling. It's really hard to tell. It really is hard to tell, and it only means 2 things, really, in my opinion. One of the either. Just saying. One meaning is Ian Garry, because we really haven't seen much of his grappling. That once he gets taken down by Makhachev, he's going to be put in like deep waters, like somewhere like he hasn't really been put before in his fights, against Shavka or MVP or whatever. He really hasn't been put in these positions where Makhachev is going to put him in these positions, and Ian Gary's going to really struggle, and he's going to break mentally in this fight in the grappling, kind of like JDM. And so we might see that because Gary has never been put in deep waters. He drowns. And so there's that one outcome. And then there's the other outcome as to Gary. We really haven't not seen much of his grappling, which means that's going to transition into the Islam Makhachev fight where, because Ian Gary is such a good grappler, we really haven't seen him be put in bad positions. It also means he's not going to be put in bad positions against Makhachev, where he's going to be put in bad positions, but he's not going to drown for the most part, what I'm trying to say, because he is such a good grappler. And he is a really underrated grappler, to be fair, Ian Gary. So it's either or. It's either or, whatever that means for Ian Gary as to why we really haven't seen much of his grappling, how that's going to affect his fight against Makhachev this weekend. So I'm going to be honest, I really don't know. I really don't know from what I've seen as Gary going to get drowned very quickly, might get submitted in the first round, or he's going to be do really good, be able to wear down, be able to ride out Makhachev's grappling, and then eventually be able to keep the fight on the feet for the most part and outstrike Islam Makhachev in the later rounds. Kind of similar to when Sean Strickland fought Hamza. Can we see that? I'm not sure. I'm gonna be genuinely honest. I'm not sure. We're probably just only gonna find out this weekend, especially because both fighters are doing their own film study. So it's kind of hard to really see exactly what's going to be different in this fight. And so I'm not sure. But either way, I do lean towards Ian Gary. I kind of already said Ian Gary before on the channel that I think he wins. When the fight got announced the day of, I forgot when it got released, but when the fight got announced on the day of, I made my first reaction to this fight, and I went with Ian Gary. And so I really don't want to change my pick since then, because I do think Ian Gary still has a solid chance. And from what I've seen, I'm not fully convinced either or wins this fight, but I'm gonna lean towards Ian Gary winning it based off. I have a feeling, and I do think the size is gonna play a big factor. I feel like a lot of people are disregarding the fact that Ian Machado Garry is a big welterweight. So who knows? But either way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who wins, because after this one, Michael Morales is going to sleep Islam and Ian Gary. So yeah, he's going to torque over the Islam's or Gary's unconscious body and become the next champ. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, but it's not like I really care who wins this fight, because I do think Michael Morales probably beats Prates, and then he goes and beats Islam or Gary. So I mean, it's not like I'm being biased. Like I'm trying to let you know, like I really don't care who wins this. But either way, I'm gonna go with Ian Gary. I do think he wins this slightly. There's a good. I can't tell really, but I'm gonna go with Ian Gary by decision. Islam Makhachev can win this fight by decision, submission, KO. Not KO, but either way, he still win this by submission. But I do think Gary, for the most part, wins. I can't tell you, but I'm gonna go with Ian Gary decision. But yeah, those are all my picks for this weekend. For UFC 230. If you think differently, if you have a different opinion, let me know in the comment section below. I like to read your comments. Keep it civil, especially for that one specific fan base that follows Islam Makhachev. Keep it civil. And yeah, I like to read your comments, so let me know what you think differently in the comment section below. And if you came this far, like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.